Hey Bobcats! Welcome back for day 2 of your equations unit, and we will be doing 2 steps today. So building off what we did yesterday, I've kind of copied the same notes down. I'd like you to copy them one more time. And if you're not printing this off, totally acceptable, just in your math journals, okay? Or in your math section of your binder. I talked about that PEMDAS, okay? It's a little more important today, all right? Because remember we talked about when we solve these equations, we're really working backwards. That's why we're going backwards through PEMDAS. And what would the first thing we look at? Well, we're looking at either addition or subtraction. So what I want you to notice, I'm going to rewrite this. 4 times n plus 9 equals negative 3. Well, now there's 2, I'm still going to ask you, what's your goal? And your goal is to isolate the variable, correct? And that top one is just me rewriting it with that times sign in between there. Well, where do I start? Do I start with the 9, the adding 9 inverse, or do I start with the inverse of timesing by 4? Well, what does PEMDAS say? PEMDAS says start going backwards, start with addition and subtraction. So we're going to start with that positive 9. I'm going to draw my line. What's the inverse of a positive 9? Minus 9. What I do to one side, I do to the other. Remember, these cancel out. I'm going to bring down my 4n. Now, if I don't trust myself with my integers, I'm going to go use my calculator. And I'm going to type it like I see it. Negative 3 minus 9. That would be negative 12. Okay, so now I'm here. This was the one step part, right? Now we're doing the second step, okay? Hence 2 steps. So, what's the inverse of multiplying by 4? Well, that would be dividing by 4. What I do to one side, I do to the other. So, n equals negative 3. And if you needed help doing that, you could just do it on your calculator. So now I have my answer, but I want to make sure that I'm correct. So I'm going to go up to the original problem, and I'm going to say 4 times, not n, but negative 3, plus 9 equals negative 3. Now, I can choose to solve this out, right? I can say, look, 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. Negative 12 plus 3 is negative 9. Sometimes that's smarter than putting in here, but if you need help and you genuinely are going to get stuck on those integers, come over here and get that true statement. Okay, sometimes this happens. Let me go hit OK. There we go. 4 times negative 3 plus 9 equals negative 3. See how I still get that true statement, okay? Moving right along. I'd like you to pause the video and try number 2 on your own, and then come back and correct with me, or check with me rather. So you're pausing and doing that one solo. I'll keep going. All right, I'm looking for my addition and subtraction. This is subtracting 11. Okay, so I'm going to start and say, what's the inverse of subtracting 11? That would be to add 11. Do it on both sides. I can do that one in my head. If not, use your calculator. I'm going to bring down my negative 8y. So first step, now we're moving on to that second step. What's the inverse of multiplying by a negative 8? To divide by a negative 8. Do it on both sides. Negative 3 equals y. And it's way more high school to flip your answer. Okay, so like Miss Lucky and I wouldn't write it like that. I think I might have done that on my old video, but you or the one-step video, but you do need to switch it around. Okay. Now let's go check. And we'll go back to our original and say 13 equals negative 8 times negative 3 minus 11. 13 equals negative 8 times negative 3 minus 11. True. All right, we're switching it up with some decimals there. Hopefully you got that room right. Virtual high five if you did. Switching it up with some decimals now. Same rules apply. What's your goal? Hopefully you're saying isolate that variable. And then what do we start with? Well, we're multiplying by negative 2.5 or subtracting the 3.2. So hopefully you're saying we need to do the inverse of that 3.2. And what I do to one side, I go do to the other. So 74.1 plus 3.2 is 77.3. I think I did something wrong there. Nope, I did it. Okay. 77.3 equals 2.5D. What did I forget? This is a huge mistake. I'm leaving something behind. Hopefully you're saying, Miss Kelly, it's a negative 2.5D. Okay? So how do you get rid of multiplying by a negative 2.5? You divide by that negative 2.5. And remember, just kind of showing you what I've already showed you, negative 2.5 divided by negative 2.5. Oh, I did something goofy. Ignore that. Good thing there was a glare. Okay, let me start over. Negative 2.5 divided by negative 2.5. See how that gives you your 1? So that's how we know they cancel out. But what I do to one side, I do to the other side. So we'll say 77.3 divided by negative 2.5. And I'm getting negative 30.2. And I like to arrow up and just make sure like nothing's repeating or anything. So I'm getting that 30.92, and it is negative. I didn't say that. Negative 30.92. So it's totally okay to get a decimal answer, or in some cases if you're dealing with fractions and you don't clear the fraction. We'll get into that later. I'm jumping the gun. Let's stay here. All right, so we're saying negative 2.5 times, oh, you know what? Let me rewrite that down here. I'm going to need some more space. Negative 2.5 times negative 30.92 minus 3.2 equals 74.1. This is getting lengthier to check with that true false. So just be careful as you're typing. Your teacher might pause the video and give you a better way to check. And that is more than okay. I'm getting that true. But if I mistyped something, it would give me false. So the first thing I would do if I got a false would be, did I type it in correctly? Okay. All right. What's our first thing we're going to do? Are we going to take care of this adding 11 or this dividing by 3? Hopefully you're saying, Miss Kelly, we need to take care of that adding 11. So the inverse would be to take away 11. I'm going to double check myself. 29 minus, 11, 18. All right, and I'll bring down my m over 3. So now I'm going to say, hey, what's the inverse of dividing by 3? And you would say multiplying by 3. Those cancel out. And I'm left with my m. But I gotta multiply by 3. I did it on the left side. I gotta come do it on the right side. And I'm getting 54. Okay, so we'll go plug in. We'll say 54 divided by 3 plus 11. Does that equal 29? Ooh, 54 divided by 3. See how I arrow out? Make sure you're arrowing out. Equals 29. True statement. All right. You can pause that if you need to get any of those. I'm going to move on. We've only got 3 more to do here. Okay? So on number 5, I'd like you to pause and you to do number 5. It's set up just like number 4. Okay, so you can look back at number 4 to help. Okay, what am I going to start with? This negative 12, didn't mean to scribble there, or this dividing by negative 7. I'm going to start with the negative 12, so I'll say plus 12, and those cancel out. Plus 12. Kind of wrote far down there, didn't I? So that would be 18 equals h over negative 7. From here, I'd say, what's the inverse of dividing by negative 7? And you would say multiplying by negative 7. H equals, and we'll say negative 7 times 18 gives me negative 126. And we're going to go plug that in. So we'll say 6 equals negative 12 plus negative 126 over negative 7. So like I said, some of these get pretty lengthy. Make sure you type it in just like you see it after you've written it down. So I'm going to check it. 6 equals negative 12 plus negative 126 over negative 7. True statement. Hopefully you got negative 126. Virtual high five if you did. Okay, these are definitely the harder two. All right, so I'll do number 6 with you, and then I'm going to let you do number 7 on your own. Okay, where am I starting? Okay, with this fraction here, and I'm going to rewrite it. Okay, I'm going to rewrite it like this. If that's more confusing, or if your teacher wants to pause and show you a different way, that's more than okay. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to start with this negative 14. In some of my classes, too, when like students are having like a hard time knowing where to start, I say start with the one that stands alone. Okay, now that works here, right? It's standing alone, standing alone. Most of the time that phrase works, okay? So if you're a little confused, start with the one that stands alone. We're going to add 14, and we'll do it to both sides. So we're starting with the addition and subtraction, adding both sides. All right, 575 equals 2a over 3. So how do we get rid of that dividing by 3? We're going to multiply by 3. So technically, this is a multi-step. So you're kind of getting a preview of tomorrow. See how we're going to have 3 steps all in all? So 75 times 3 gives me 225. And I'm going to bring down that 2a. The very last thing I'm going to do, divide by 2. So a will equal, ooh, what do I do there? Just hit Control, Enter. Okay, and then I'm going to go check. So 2/3 times a, well, what was a? 112.5 minus 14 equals 61. And so here I wrote parentheses, but that's just times 112.5 minus 14 equals 61. True. Okay, I would like you to do number 7. Now I'm going to pause and just fill in my work, and if you have a question, you're going to check in with your teacher. Okay, so hopefully you got 90 as your answer. This was kind of a challenging one, okay? If you did not get 90 as your answer, hopefully you realized that as you plugged it in. That's the value of checking your answer. What probably threw you off is you might have subtracted a 6 here, but that is a positive 6. So what's the inverse of a positive 6? A negative 6. So if you got that wrong, you probably got the rest of this wrong. That's the power of integers right there. Remember how I told you? You always look at what's in front. Well, we don't write the positive sign in the front, don't we? Or do we? We know that. Sometimes people look at the sign behind it. This right here belongs to that 2/9. See how it travels with the 2/9? Okay? And right here what I did is I just rewrote it. Okay? Let your teacher know if you have any questions. You can email them. You can get them through Canvas. And Miss Lecky and I have Remind, I believe. Okay? You guys stay safe, take care, and always be kind.